Alright, so I'd like to do a quick video about Silent Dragon fundamentals of breathing and Qigong. These fundamentals are actually integral for how to generate power and movement within our school, within our style, if you will. And so we call this expanding the pearl. So basically there are 3 pearls or burners, and it's basically corresponds to the abdominal cavity, the chest cavity, and then the stance underneath between the ground and your perineum. And so if we begin with the middle pearl, which is your abdominal cavity corresponding to your middle dantian if you prefer. And honestly, you could use dantian and pearl or burner interchangeably. They have somewhat different connotations, and you could distinguish those connotations, but you could nonetheless use them fairly interchangeably. So the middle pearl, of course, the abdominal cavity, or the space in the center of your body. And that's a key concept. All of these have more to do with a feeling of internal space than anything else. A feeling of internal space which then allows you to articulate your body in more sophisticated ways. And I would say that there seems to be something else to it than that, in that when I activate them, or when I integrate my movements with those spaces, it does seem to create a different effect than it would otherwise. Maybe not better. Again, none of this, Kung Fu doesn't give you superpowers, but I find it to be helpful. So the middle pearl, basically from roughly the hip joint area, or the upper pelvis and hip joint area to the solar plexus. So we'll breathe in and feel this whole area expand. Now, when I say feel it expand, I don't just mean to imagine it expanding. And so there's an element of course, you inhale and your lungs inflate, and so your internal cavities expand. But it's also, I'm actually even muscularly pushing out. So instead of contracting, if I tuck in my shirt, maybe it would be better to see. I breathe in and feel my abdominal cavity expand out on all sides. So in the front, the corners, the sides, the back corners, and the back. So typically what we would do is you can and will eventually and should do the whole middle pearl together. But to begin with, you can place your hand, say, in the front, and breathe into the front section of the middle pearl. So you're breathing in and expanding the front of your abdomen. And then exhale, and you allow it to deflate naturally. And I'm just putting my hand there so I can feel, I want to feel at least some semblance of movement. Preferably more than just a semblance, but when we get to the back, you'll see it's quite difficult to get a lot of movement, of course, because that's where your spine is. And then after a few breaths, at least 4 or so, you can place your hands on the front corners. And then the sides, so and then the back corners. Now now we're sort of moving into the kidney area, and now it'll probably get a little bit more challenging to feel actual physical movement, but you want to again feel at least the semblance of it. And then place your hand right on the center, so right on your spine, and then out. So you want to feel your spine flexing slightly, but not by deliberately moving your spine, not by deliberately flexing your back in any way. And then we could go to the whole middle pearl, the whole abdominal cavity. All right, so that's one pearl. You do the same. I'll make future videos about the upper pearl and the lower pearl. The upper pearl is relatively self-explanatory. You know, front of the chest, sides, and then my teacher Bruce would call this the shoulder gua, which is, you know, a questionable use of the term gua, but by that he meant joint or gait. You know, so ball and socket joint. The shoulder is a ball and socket joint like the hips. So after you expand in the chest, the front of the chest, and the sternum area, the sides of the chest, like the pectoral region, and then the shoulder gua. So that includes also the side. So you want to feel everything expanding out, then the back corners, and then the upper spine. And again, the feeling is not just out horizontally, but also the pearls expand up. So there's a certain feeling, like, and this is now very abstract, but a certain feeling of it rising up almost into the throat, but don't make yourself choke because you could. And also descending down. Same thing, the center pearl feels like it's pushing down into your pelvic area and pushing up toward the solar plexus. So the central pearl and the upper pearl are essentially the same idea. In a later video, I'll talk about the lower pearl, which that requires a little bit more explanation. It's a little bit more counterintuitive, although not particularly. Once you get it, it's not difficult. It's just you have to wrap your mind around it. So first we expand or form the pearl. So expand a feeling of space, which also includes learning how to expand the cavities muscularly, and then we'll work on moving, right? Rolling, moving, changing. So this once we start moving the pearls, we're learning how to change our center of mass, change our center of gravity, and then you can start sequentially activating them. And then once you have that, then we have refining the pearl, which is to basically open and then compress. And then after that we have steam dragon, which is open, compress, and then explosively compress and then allow the energy to escape, like steam escaping under pressure. All right, that's just a little bit of Silent Dragon Kung Fu fundamentals. Thank you.